Daylight revealed devastation. This house just north of Singleton was ripped from its foundations and dumped 50 metres away.
The door started to shatter. I walked to grab the door, but it blew and threw me up against the wall.
The Patton family had been celebrating the birthday of their 2-year-old daughter when they became trapped in the terror of the storm. The neighbour who came to the family's rescue is being hailed as a hero after she dragged 2 of the children from the wreckage.
There's just blood all over us, and we've lifted him in the car and debris all over the road. We had to sort of go in and out to get out and straight to the hospital.
She was, remarkable to do what she did. I mean, she was out in the rain and hail, but, it didn't seem to bother her. She just wanted to get us out.
In town, Singleton has become a patchwork quilt of tarpaulins, as 45 emergency crews help families to repair what the hail has destroyed. 500 homes were damaged, some buildings looking like victims of a drive-by shooting. For all involved, it was an early Christmas present they could have done without.
Tremendous roar. I couldn't work out what this roaring sound was, and then the hail started, and a lot of it was as big as my fist.
The local Catholic school suffered the most, 400 windows smashed just a couple of hours after students left the classrooms.
If it had been an hour and a half earlier, we would have had a major problem, as you've seen, because so many of these classrooms, it's like blast damage with them, and so we were just lucky.
There was no mercy for the neighbouring convent, its historic stained glass windows stoned by the storm. Staff at Singleton Hospital have started to add up the cost of the damage. Farmers also expect a big bill running into the millions.
Oh, we'll get through this. We will. We're determined. We're united, of course, and I'm sure that 6 months down the track, we'll put this future city back on stream again.
A recovery centre has been established to coordinate the emergency efforts. A mayoral appeal has also been launched to help raise money for those worst hit. Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
The meeting at the birthplace of Speedway started well enough, the pre-race briefing attracting motorcycle enthusiasts from New South Wales and interstate. It was the 73rd anniversary of the sport, but by race time not much was going right. Under substandard lighting, the track was torn apart after only a handful of laps. Riders tried their best to deal with the conditions as organisers tried to pack down the surface. An unimpressed crowd waited for action but to no avail, and by the end of the night, some were demanding refunds. A blow also for young Supercross star Danny Ham. The 18-year-old may miss the opening round of next year's Australian Series through injury. Ham has damaged ligaments after a crash during practice in Sydney. But helping to ease the pain today was the release of a new video starring the man himself. Terra Firma 3 was shot around the Hunter, one of the most spectacular scenes filmed on Stockton Beach. He may be out of action as the injury heals, but the teenager will still be kept busy now the video has hit the shelf. Holland's elimination illustrates the depth of talent competing in the third annual bash. All up, 180 of the world's elite bodyboarders are competing. Most are from New South Wales, but there are also surfers from Queensland, Victoria and Western Australia, plus a strong international contingent from Brazil, Reunion Island and Portugal. Difficult conditions greeted bodyboarders today, but with more than $10,000 worth of prizes up for grabs, the standard was still top class. Also at Avoca this weekend, the 12th annual Avoca Pines Charity Surf Classic. With the bigger sets closing out, competitors were left with little choice but to take the smaller waves. It didn't bother Sandon Point's James Hughes in the under-14s. He progressed with consistent scores during the heats. Finals will be held tomorrow as surfers try to emulate the success of former Classic winner Mark Sanger-Sainsbury.
Beat Quick Flick, he's well clear. Nozomi Express trying to get to him with Waku Lash and Noble Park not doing enough at the moment. Quick Flick is in front, 100 out. He's feeling the pinch. Nozomi Express is gradually getting to him, but Quick Flick has run them off their feet. Quick Flick beat...
Quick Flick paid $6.30 and $2.30, Nozomi Express $1.90 and $1.50 for Noble Park, the Quinella $16.20 and the Trifecta almost $80. The sixth event was over 1,200 metres, the favourite Burketown Boy.
Have headed Seto Pegasus, Myella Princess coming down the outside, but Burketown Boy is clear with 100 to go. Myella Prince getting home late, but Burketown Boy too good and wins well over Myella Prince, who ducked in sharply.
5, 7 and 9, Burketown Boy returning $3.40 and $1.60, the Quinella $15.20 and the Trifecta $6.55.10. The Christmas Cup was over 2,400 metres, it was race number 7.
And they're clear of Seto Bridge and Max Victory right down the outside. Sensory Boy Western approaches. Sensory Boy grabs a narrow lead close to home and he's drawing away now. Sensory Boy's going to win the Christmas Cup over Western approaches and Waikika.
$8.80 and $2.90, $1.80 and $2.20, the Quinella $11 even and the Trifecta $1.69.40. In the face of competition, it's good news for the Knights. The improvement set to lure fans to marathon. Heading the bill, the erection of a scoreboard. Stage 1 will feature a full-colour graphics display screen. It will be completed before the start of the season. Ultimately, the scoreboard will look like this with an additional full replay screen, but that's more than $1 million away.
Stage 2 and Stage 3, well, they'll come down the track, but we'll plan. We've got a plan for that and get it, into place over a number of years.
$65,000 will be used towards the improvement of toilet facilities. Another $80,000 will go towards the installation of a new public address system. The Hunter Eagles baseball team is also set to benefit. After making Marathon their home base this season, they are hoping to make the venue their permanent address. Jonathan Upton, NBN News. New South Wales Touch is $40,000 richer, and with the Hunter Regional and State titles to be held early next year, the association is overwhelmed.
Absolutely perfect timing. Our state titles are our second biggest tournament in New South Wales, second or third biggest amateur event, and a great boost for the Hunter region.
The upgraded lighting will allow touch to be played at any time at the Harness Racing Club and could lend itself towards the establishment of greyhound racing at the complex. The Newcastle Jockey Club recently announced it's looking at closing Beaumont Park at the end of the financial year, and with the greyhound fraternity looking for a new home, there may be a chance of a move to Broadmeadow.
All I'm suggesting is that I think there's options there to look at making our facility a true sporting facility and more than one sport there.
The infrastructure is already in place at the Trots. All that would be needed is a greyhound track, and one plan suggests it could stretch down the home straight.
A straight track might be an option there because all of the facilities are there. We've got our grandstand, we've got our winning post, we've got our timing facilities, could all be utilised by a greyhound track, and straight down the home straight I think would be ideal.
Jonathan Upton, NBN News.
Angela Foley was found unconscious in her Belmont home in October last year. She clung to life for a week, dying as a result of massive head injuries. An inquest into her death today heard that she'd left her husband some months earlier, taking out an apprehended domestic violence order against him. Robert Foley told how he met his wife in Papua New Guinea in 1976, moving to Australia 2 years later. When asked whether he'd ever been physically violent toward his wife, Mr. Foley declined to answer on the grounds it may incriminate him, which is his legal right. He also refused to answer questions about whether he believed he owned his wife and an allegation that he had intended to replace his wife with her younger sister. Prosecutor assisting the coroner, Sergeant Philip Lloyd, asked Mr. Foley about a trip he took on Lake Macquarie the morning of the attack on his wife. Was that for the purpose of disposing of a weapon? Mr. Foley again replied, "I decline to answer that question on the grounds it may incriminate me." There will be some 115 witnesses brought before the coroner to give evidence into the death of Angela Foley. Robert Foley has guaranteed not to contact any of those people. The inquest will resume in the new year. I can't do a sign-off because I'm...
A survey of 500 motorists in Newcastle has found that most are concerned about air pollution. They say walking, cycling and ride-sharing are the best ways of reducing car use, along with access to a better public transport system. At the moment, less than 5% of Novocastrians use public transport. With cycleways expensive to create and car sharing being conducted on an experimental basis, the City Council, along with NRMA's Clean Air 2000 committee, are encouraging people to use their vehicles more sparingly.
For all of us, if we were to even perhaps just write down each day how often we used the car and what we did, we could significantly reduce those car trips by combining them with other activities.
Introducing daily travel diaries and vehicle emission checks are some of the ways Council is trying to encourage people to think about their driving habits. But in the long term, urban planners are working at designing less car-dependent cities. The Council's reserves plummeted by close to $28 million over the past 5 years, from a healthy $41 million down to $13 million, just enough to safely cover running costs. The big slugs came from the refurbishment of the Civic Theatre, setting up the Summerhill Tip and a $10 million insurance payout over damage to the Newcastle Workers Club during the 1989 earthquake. The Council is taking an appeal to the High Court over that payout.
We'll be appearing in the High Court to argue our case, or have our case argued, in March '97. So, I'll be looking forward to that.
After some serious belt-tightening and close scrutiny by the local government department, Lord Mayor Greg Hees is confident the city is back on track to consolidating reserves once again.
We need to use the experience as a warning that we can't live beyond our means. The previous council had a budget that was spending more on the organisation than what we were generating by way of income. In the current budget of this new council, we now spend less.
The Knights kicked off proceedings, albeit in an informal manner. Some were having trouble staying awake as the club's new players were officially introduced. 7 in all, they'll fill positions right across the board.
We've got halfback, 5'8", got a centre, a couple of hookers and a second row, so it's pretty good.
The more seasoned players were also there, but some may come in for internal reprimands after they failed to arrive in uniform. It was the Mariners' turn in the afternoon. They introduced their players and walked onto Breakers Stadium for the first time. It too was an informal session. The league players were meant to be there to be taught by the soccer players, but instead they were the ones issuing advice. As the coaches traded secrets, the players came to terms with their new home ground.
I think every team likes to win all their home games, and we're not going to be any different. We want to get off on the right foot in that first home game.
That will be played against Canterbury in round 1 of Super League. Jonathan Upton, NBN News. This afternoon, theatre members were putting the finishing touches to the auditorium. On the program for next year are 6 productions, one of the theatre's most ambitious lineups.
We try to balance the program so that you're not seeing all comedies, all heavy stuff, all, American or Australian or English. There's a balance.
Included are works by Neil Simon and David Williamson, but it will be the work of local first-time playwright John McFadden to kick off the season. Triangle Men is a look at Newcastle historical identity James Morissette.
Saw a full run last night, and it obviously has some distance to travel yet before it's up to the quality and standard that we expect here.
The season opens on the 7th of January.
School was out for the year at Mayfield East Public today, and in line with the school's new tradition, it was time to toll the old school bell. While a little rusty, it nevertheless served its purpose, signifying the departure of the class of '96. Doing the honours this year was Jim Latham, savouring the moment he'd longed for as a young boy some 80 years ago.
Oh, I'm walking on air. I'm ecstatic.
For Mr Latham, it was a lucky break. He'd dropped into the school to deliver some encyclopedias, and suddenly a childhood dream was realised.
One thing led to another, and in 5 minutes I was booked in to ring the bell. And there was no need to ask, would I do it?
After the ceremonial bell ringing, the school sent its senior students on their way, a guard of honour applauding them as they left.
For the past 2 years, a local green group has tried to stop the minerals company RZM from mining the Tomago sandbeds because of environmental concerns. Today, Judge Talbot in Sydney dismissed those claims. It follows several demonstrations and sit-ins by the Tomago Sandbeds Action Coalition. 11 of their members were arrested and they now face a legal bill of more than $100,000. The company is also considering seeking costs. A spokesperson for the company says RZM has been mining the area for 25 years and has always respected sensitive and environmental issues. This was confirmed by Judge Talbot, who says RZM has always acted responsibly. The RZM spokesperson says employees should be elated with the decision because they have suffered anxiety and tension during the court challenge. A spokesperson for the action group says she's disappointed the judge has dismissed the case.
Still going past the skids and on the way down. Okay, now move right to 1 hold and move forward 3.
Yeah, I'd like
and
to.
You're clear to move off if you wish to the left.
To the left a bit.
Away from the rocks, yes.
Thank you.
Halfway up. 2/3 of the way up.
The guys might make some room in the back there somewhere.
Stopping below the skids. Yes, it has stopped. You might come.
Beer-swilling Santas wasted no time getting the celebrations underway early last night. Not far away, faithful reindeers limbered up for their annual pilgrimage through Merriweather. Around 5,000 spirited Santas joined the procession, staggering from pub to pub well into the night. Some went to great lengths to recreate the Christmas tale, while others appeared to be at the wrong party. Police and security guards joined the trail, making just one arrest for assault later in the night. While its popularity means big business for local hoteliers, others say it snowballed out of control.
It was worse than when the earthquake was on. It was just solid glass and rubbish, and this was at 12 o'clock last night.
Despite the opposition, Santa looks set to return next year.
The Newcastle Falcons have few complaints about their draw for next season. 30 games in all, that's 4 more than last year. Having to fit them all in has been the biggest problem for the NBL, so midweek games will be played. The Falcons have 3.
Yeah, new challenges all round. We're looking at the league differently. Of course, this is the first step, I suppose, on our way to summer, in the summer of 98-99, and we're going to have to accommodate some of these changes along the way.
Like all clubs, the Falcons will do their share of travelling again this season. Their biggest trip will take them to New Zealand. The clash with the South East Melbourne Magic on the 27th of September was due to clash with the AFL Grand Final, so the teams agreed to make the trip across the Tasman.
It will be a follow-up, of course, to the Oceania series, where the Boomers play New Zealand this year in the first round of qualifying for the Sydney Olympics.
The Falcon season tips off on the 12th of April, an away match against Illawarra. The first clash at home a week later against North Melbourne. The memory of that upset last week is still entrenched at Breakers Stadium, but one person from the winning lineup missing at training today was in-form striker Clayton Zane. He's out with the young Socceroos, but there's a more than adequate replacement in Harry James. He tore ligaments a fortnight ago and has made a speedy recovery, but the team admits Clayton Clacker Zane will be missed.
You always miss a player like Clacker because he'll cause problems all game, but with Harry coming back in, that'll be a big help.
The victory over Sydney United has done wonders for team confidence. The side hadn't won since round 1.
It's good to knock off the side that's been undefeated all season, and hopefully we'll go on again this week and win.
But the trip south won't be easy.
The Sydney sides seem to play a lot stronger at home, but we'll just get in there and do our best.
The side is still to be finalised with the automatic 1-week suspension of defender Matty Alston. He was outed after receiving his 4th yellow card of the season. The likely replacement, either Peter Ritchie or Glenn Moore.
"90 crews and boats have travelled from as far as West Australia to fight it out for the National VJ and Skate Sailing Championships. The 12 and 14-footers attract the cream of young sailors, having been the proving ground for the likes of World 18-foot skiff champion Chris Nicholson and America's Cup-winning skipper John Bertrand.
They're a tough boat to master, and they're extremely fast and unforgiving. They go over easy, and it takes a lot of skill to sail one properly.
While some familiarised themselves with the waters of Lake Macquarie, most spent today fine-tuning their craft. Organisers are hoping conditions will pick up for the start of racing tomorrow.
We'd want a couple of good southerlies, maybe a couple of howling westerlies, and some good nor'easters would be the ticket.
It's unlikely the almost 300 children taking part in the Australian Sabo Championships will be looking for such difficult conditions. 108 of the small boats will line up for the titles. Organisers say the field is wide open.
We have a number, I'd like to say, in northern New South Wales that I think we may do well with, but you never know. There are some great kids here. They are all basically able to be champions. So just watch and see.
Official racing starts on Monday. Phil Hind, NBN News. The fleet in the Pittwater to Coffs was greeted by light variable conditions today. One yacht keen to avoid a collision in the bustle was Andrew Strachan's 97, which was forced to withdraw from the Sydney to Hobart after a collision yesterday. Also joining the fleet, Ragamuffin, which withdrew from the Hobart race after shredding her mainsail.
It'll give our bigger boats, which are our local boat Rager, and some of those other bigger boats in the race, it'll give them a bit of competition and make it a bit tougher for them.
Not in this year's fleet is last year's Line Honours winner, Innkeeper. It's on its way to Hobart. Jockeying for position before the start provided a few tense moments for crews and a spectacle for the hundreds who took up every vantage point on Barrenjoey Headland. The race record for the 225 nautical mile journey stands at 20 hours 56 minutes, set in 1984. Organisers say the leaders will need near-perfect conditions to beat it.
If it's favourable conditions and they've got that southerly, like all day today, tonight, we could see the first ones in from 10 o'clock on, early, like late tomorrow morning, and hopefully we can break that race record.
However, the record looks safe. At the last radio check this afternoon, the field was still tightly bunched off Newcastle. A group of 3, 97, Coffs Harbour local Rager and Sydney's Bin Rouge had a slight lead. The forecast tonight is for moderate southeast to easterlies.
Restive just hung on to get the money. It paid $19.70 and $4. The long-priced winner boosting the trifecta to nearly $700. The stays turned out for the next at Rose Hill, race 7 over 2,000 metres. Another long shot, the winner paying nearly 50 to 1. And the trifecta will buy great holidays for the winners. It paid nearly $12,000. Racing was also at Doomben, the feature event, race 7 over 1,350 metres. Finally, a winner for favourite punters. It paid $2.20 and $1.50. The trifecta just under $100.
The visitors started the night up 2-0 in the series and the signs were there from the start. They wanted to go home with all of the spoils. The Cougars bashed their way to the lead in the first game and never looked back. 5 home runs in the match set up the Gold Coast's 8-3 victory before their coach demanded an even bigger performance in the second. The Cougars delivered, running away with a 9-5 victory and a 4-0 whitewash of the series, but there were some highlights for the locals as well, showing plenty of promise for the future. The ABL's youngest player, Adam Morrissey, he cracked 2 safe hits and more than held his own in the field.
Despite today's inclement weather, the streets around Nelson Bay were choked with tourist traffic. It's estimated the town's population more than doubles during the Christmas-New Year break. Around town, the no vacancy signs are out.
What we're advising people to do is to ring up first before you come up to Port Stephens and make sure that you can get suitable accommodation.
For years a well-kept secret, word on Nelson Bay is now reaching foreign shores, with an influx of tourists from Asia and New Zealand.
We're getting a lot of interest from Japan, a lot of interest from Singapore, a lot of interest from Taiwan and Hong Kong.
Meanwhile, nearby Shoal Bay is bracing itself for one of the Hunter region's biggest New Year's bashes. Police estimate between 3,000 and 5,000 people will pack the normally sleepy main street tomorrow night to welcome in 1997. After serious problems in previous years, more than 50 police and extra highway patrol units will keep a watch on revellers.
Our aim, as proven last year, that with the right number of police there, monitoring the crowd's behaviour, that we can ensure that everyone does have an enjoyable night.
To ensure fewer problems, the local council has installed extra lighting in the main street, while floodlights will illuminate the beach. Phil Hind, NBN News.
It was a fiery night for Harry James. The Breakers striker had already received a yellow card, and then there was this. James was sent from the field, his efforts drawing a heated response off camera from his coach.
The thing that was disappointing was, not only Harry's stupidity, because he has done it before, but he let himself down. He let the club down, and most importantly, let his teammates down.
It was a crucial point in the match, but despite playing the rest of the game with 10 men, the Breakers did everything to hang on. A lucky break in the 64th minute, former Newcastle defender Nick Meredith helping his old club to a surprise lead. But then the Olympic onslaught. Captain Darren Bennett found the equaliser. And when Chris Trajanovski split the gap 2 minutes later, the home side was in control. A number of missed opportunities followed, then just as it appeared the home side would get the points, Robbie Ironside got sweet revenge on the club that didn't want him. The match finished 2-2, but that send-off has left the Breakers in trouble for their next clash. James gets an automatic 1-week suspension, while fellow striker Clayton Zane will still be out on representative duties.
Harry's send-off come at a fairly inopportune time in terms of, the squad, because we are short on numbers up front.
Australia's up-and-coming sailing stars are at Lake Macquarie for the Australian Sabo Championships. Heat 1 started this afternoon off Wanji Sailing Club. 200 of the eastern seaboard's best searching for the right winds and angles over a 7 nautical mile course. With the spectator craft looking on, the congestion around the first buoy and the one-up seniors indicated the closeness of this year's competition. Winner of yesterday's invitation race, Paul Bonicher, started slowly before weaving through and up to the leaders. While an upset loomed there, no surprises in the under 6 to 12s juniors. 10-year-old duo Adam Beattie and Daniel Lunan led the way in It's a Menace. The pair were giving plenty of cheek, lifting their way to the line. They won last year's championships aged 9 and should score back-to-back victories. The competition continues for the next week.
For nearly 2 decades, Peter Taylor has been helping thousands of youngsters to improve their tennis games.
I'm a great person on job satisfaction. I like dealing with people. I like setting myself challenges. I'm very committed to tennis. I love the sport. I call it a passion, and I give it my best shot every time I walk on the court.
That attitude has helped Peter to build his business from nothing to a 5-court tennis coaching complex at Rayworth near Maitland. Some of the region's best have been coached there, including Trudy Musgrave and Peter's own daughter, Jane Taylor. Along the way, there's been very little recognition, that is, until now, with Peter named the Coach of the Year by the Tennis Professionals of Australia.
I was elated. I really was elated, and totally unexpected. No warning whatsoever.
Despite being a professional coach for 18 years, including the head of the Hunter Academy of Sports tennis program for the past 8, there's no thoughts of retirement.
The fun in sport will never ever leave if you have the right approach.